Ready? Good evening. Welcome to the City of Paris Planning Commission meeting. Wow, I can't believe the date we finally come to this. November 15, 2023. Rainy weather, so hope everyone was safe just getting here. And the screen went out. So we'd like to first start with a roll call.
Commissioner Gomez,
Here.
Commissioner Lopez,
Here.
Commissioner Jimenez,
Here.
Vice Chair Shively,
Here.
Chair Hammond.
Here. I think I said 6:06 p.m. Okay. The Pledge of Allegiance will be conducted by Commissioner Gomez. If you would all stand and face the flag.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We move to item 4. Is there a presentation? I don't think so. So we move to item 5, consent calendar. Planning Commission minutes for November 1st, 2023. And are there any changes, additions, deletions, bad spelling?
None.
Chair Hammond, actually did just notice that it's missing it was open for public comment during the consent calendar for the minutes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's going to happen. Yeah. Okay. No, I didn't forget that one.
No, I'm saying that the minutes need to be corrected to reflect that it was open for public comment.
Oh, the last one.
We're on consent calendar for the minutes,
Yeah.
correct?
Uh-huh.
So the minutes don't reflect that item 5A was open for public comment. Under item 5A.
Oh, okay.
Just a correction that I'm pointing out for the,
Oh,
for
okay,
the
in the
commission to
minutes.
adopt, yeah.
Okay. Okay, in a minute. Okay. And it's still early, too. Okay. Okay, thank you. Just for the record, I mean, even if there's no answer, is there any discussion, any ex parte communication concerning any of these items in the consent calendar minutes? Okay. No corrections, no deletions, okay. With that, we open it for public comment on the consent calendar, Planning Commission minutes for November 1st, 2023. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Thank you very much. We close public comment and bring it back to the commission for a vote. Oh. Oh, we need a motion. I can't see. Okay, let's verbally say it then. It's moved by,
Move.
okay. Commissioner Jimenez.
Commissioner Gomez, I second.
Oh, there it is, okay. Seconded by Commissioner Gomez. Thank you.
Commissioner Gomez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Abstain.
Commissioner Jimenez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shively,
Yes.
Chair Hammond.
Yes.
With a vote of 4-0, this motion is approved.
Thank you very much. We move on to item 6A, public hearing. It's been requested that we, and it's based on the approval of the commission, that we move item 6D to 6A. 6D being the intention to abate a public nuisance in the city of Paris, located at 346 Tortoise Place. So it's been requested by staff, if they want to say something, it's fine, to move item 6D to 6A.
I just wanted to briefly state there should be a memo on your desk requesting that the item be continued to the next available plan commission, which is December 6th. The applicant is working with the property owner, and so the request is to continue it. And the hope is that they clean up the property so we don't have to continue this process.
Okay, without further objection, we move the item to 6A. Okay. Item 6A, intention to abate a public nuisance in the city of Paris located at 346 Tortoise Place. Yeah. To 6A. Okay, thought I was losing it. This intention to abate is to demand that Jeremy Unger, property owner, abate and/or remedy a public nuisance related property maintenance under the Paris Municipal Code 7.06.030 5A and 7.06.030 5B and 7.04.020. Okay.
Chairman, just to clarify, we'll keep it as numbering 6D, for clarity, but we'll just rearrange it as the first item, just to keep it easier, so we're not rearranging all the numbers.
Okay, thanks for making it easier.
Thank you.
The requested action is adopt resolution number 23-36, making findings and a determination of a public nuisance, ordering the property owner to abate the nuisance, and authorizing the city to commence abatement of such nuisance if the property owner does not timely do so. It has been requested that the item be continued to December 6, 2023. But we still need to go through the process. So whether there's any ex parte communication, is there any drive-by site visits? Drive-by site visits. Okay, you get the picture.
Yeah, none for me.
Not for me.
None for me.
Yes, definitely went by the site. Okay. And with that, we still go through the, okay. Public comment, is there any public comment on this agenda item and only this agenda item? Okay, we close the public comment and come back to the commission for a motion to move this item to December 6, 2000. Let me go through the whole thing. Intention to abate a public nuisance in the city of Paris located at 346 Tortoise Place. This intention to abate is to demand that Jeremy Unger, property owner, abate and/or remedy a public nuisance and related property maintenance under the Paris Municipal Code as stated earlier. And that would be the motion to continue the item December 6, 2023. We need a mover.
I'll make a motion.
I'll
Vice
second
Chair
it.
Shively, and then, okay, there it is, okay. And seconded by Commissioner Isaac Lopez.
Commissioner Gomez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shively,
Yes.
Chair Hammond.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, this motion is approved.
Thank you once again. And now back to public hearing. I still call this 6A. Modification of conditions of approval, 23-05220. A proposal to modify an engineering condition of approval, number 16B, related to undergrounding of overhead utilities for a 236,961 square foot industrial building, previously approved under DPR 16-00013. The project site is located at the southwest corner of Redlands Avenue and Perry Street, within the light industrial zone of the Paris Valley Commerce Center specific plan. Requested action, adopt resolution number 23-33, approving the proposed modification of conditions of approval to modify engineering condition number 16B. Any ex parte communications or driving by the site that we know?
None for me.
None for me.
Driven by the site.
Okay, yeah, I've driven by the site too. And with that, we come to the city presentation. And just for the sake, for those that don't know, you just state your full name for us.
Sure. Hello. Hi, my name is Mario Ariano. I'm a contract planner, associate planner for the City of Paris. And Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and members of the audience, tonight's item is for the modification of engineering's condition of approval number 16B related to the undergrounding of overhead utilities. A quick background, on November 15, 2017, the Plan Commission approved Development Plan Review 16-00013 for the construction of a 236,961 square foot industrial building. As part of that approval, engineering conditioned the project to remove power poles and underground cable lines under 66 kilovolts, also known as KV, along Redlands Avenue frontage. Here is a site plan that depicts the location of the two power poles, which are shown in red circles. The applicant is requesting to modify engineering's condition of approval number 16B to pay an in lieu fee of $110,000 in lieu of removing the power poles and leaving them in place. Just in case the commission, just so that the commission know, this is consistent with other industrial developments along Redlands Avenue that pretty much left those power poles in place in exchange of an in lieu fee. Normally, power poles with transition lines under 66 kV are required to be underground. Currently, transmission lines here are over 66 kV, which will need to remain in place. This image shows the project and the two power poles viewing it southbound on Redlands Avenue. Here's a close-up of both power lines on the project site. The top lines are transmission lines, which are over 66 kV, and the bottom ones are distribution lines that are less than 66 kV. Here are the existing and proposed engineering condition modification. The existing condition states that existing power poles on Redlands Avenue along the property frontage shall be removed and cables under 66 kV shall be undergrounded. The proposed engineering condition states that instead of removing the power poles and undergrounding the cables on Redlands Avenue along the property frontage, the developer/property owner shall pay the city an in lieu fee of an amount of $110,000 to be used at the city's discretion for community-based related programs and/or projects. Staff has determined that the proposal is consistent with the original adopted mitigated negative declaration, MND number 2335, and mitigation monitoring and reporting program prepared for the development plan review 16-00013. Staff recommends that the Plan Commission adopt resolution number 23-33, approving the proposed modification of conditions of approval to modify engineering conditions of approval 16B. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. And following what we've been normally doing is the developer or the applicant here by any chance? If you would like to come and make a presentation at this time, you're welcome to. Wow, that's a new one. Okay, no problem. Are there any questions now for staff? Questions, not discussion, for staff.
Thank you, Mario. My first question is, so you said on Redlands, the poles are already above ground all along Redlands?
Yes.
Is there a safety issue with having them above ground, or is it merely aesthetic?
I will actually direct that to our city engineer, John Porcazimi.
Good evening, Chair Hammond, members of the Plan Commission. I'm sorry, could you repeat your question, please?
Oh, is there a safety issue with having the power lines above ground, or is it merely aesthetic?
It's aesthetic. City's general plan requires that we remove the power poles and underground all the cables. However, if they're transmission cable lines, those are not feasible to get undergrounded. So the power poles will remain in place.
One more question. Is development projects that already got passed along Redlands, are they going to do underground, or will they remain above?
So what happens actually, the existing projects that are along Redlands, the power poles are on the west side of the roadway, and if you notice, they're all still above ground. The power poles are in place. So what happens is that they relocate them if they're within the roadway section.
So, so there won't be any changes to any future, any future developments won't make any changes to those poles?
Correct. They probably remain in place in perpetuity.
Got you. Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Where did the valuation of 110,000 come from?
The developer had a utility consultant who evaluated the cost for the undergrounding, removal of the power poles and the undergrounding, and provided us with a cost. And those are typically per Edison's, Southern California Edison's unit cost evaluations.
Thank you.
One more, I have a question regarding how far along Redlands Boulevard are these poles going to extend? Where does, in other words, where does it end?
Ooh, I don't know the extent.
Because, does it end when with the last industrial building on Redlands Boulevard?
They're up, I know from Harley Knox Boulevard, they're all above grade.
Yes.
Above ground. And I know even south of Ramona Expressway, but I don't know where they end.
I'm just curious for future projects, because they do go all the way down to Ryder, that corner Ryder.
Correct, that
and
is correct.
Redlands Boulevard. Is it going to jump over Ryder and continue on to the next industrial space?
They do, they're above ground, south of Ryder too. I have to look, I have never
Okay.
actually.
I believe they go all the way down at least to Nuevo Road, those power lines. And so because of the size of the power lines and because of the requirement that only 66 kV and below gets underground, and that's a transmission line. So to my review, I know it goes down to at least to Nuevo Road.
Okay, because we're talking about this being an aesthetic, I'm just wondering at what point, now that this has started to trickle down, because this is not the first application request that we've had, just wondering how far down is this going to continue? And is it going to be necessary, because I know that further down Nuevo, there's homes on Redlands Boulevard, and they're not, I believe they're manufactured homes as well on Redlands Boulevard, if I'm correct. No? Yes, some, and then down. So I'm just curious as to how far they extend, if it's already on that street, is it above? Are they still, I think they're still above, aren't they?
City's requirements are if they come in with a new development application or a proposal, we do require removal of the power poles and undergrounding of the cables if they're under 66 kilovolts.
So I see. So because these are warehouses, they require 66 kilovolts. Is that what I'm understanding?
Oh, as far as to provide service?
Yes.
I'm not quite sure. I don't know the electrical capacity of these, but
Okay. Either way, they have to stay up, right? Is that what I'm understanding here? Okay, so there's no way around that. But if it extends down Nuevo, I'm not sure if it does, but if it were to extend and there's an application for a residential area, then that voltage is going to go down. So then it's going to go underground.
If it's below 66 kV.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
We do require that.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Did we look at the alternative of putting underground still the ones that are below 66? Because it looks very different to have 2 wires instead of 20.
That's what this fee is for, actually, is for the communication cables and distribution cables. However, since the poles are already up, I mean, so there won't be a need for actually undergrounding anything else below that.
Would it be able to
Because
do
they're going to be
that?
up anyway.
But it still looks different to have 1 wire or 2 instead of 20.
Well, that may be the case, correct. I mean, there are distribution lines that are actually in series as well. in certain circumstances.
Maura, can you bring up the image so they can see how many wires are up, just for reference?
There's a lot. That's what I'm saying, because I think the ones you were pointing out that are the transmission lines are only like the three on top, one on the left. Same thing on the second one, so there's an additional 1, 2, 3, 4,
It-
5, 6
And
those
some of
wires.
those are actually, some of those are transmission lines as well.
The bottom ones?
Yes. Yeah.
They have
So
arrows
there are
saying
a
that
couple of
that's less.
series, few series that may be transmission as well.
They're not labeled as that here.
I know this exhibit may not be too accurate.
So do we have that information? How many of those wires are there? How many are transmission and how many are distribution?
I don't have that information at this time.
So we're looking at a potential more lines, right? My understanding, the more warehouses.
No, I was asking, can we remove some of them, like underground, the ones that aren't? So we don't know how many are of which. So, I mean, if there was going to be 3 wires left up, it would be very different than having all 10.
Maybe the applicant might know. Maybe if he knows, then we can bring him up.
We'd get you up here some kind of way. We knew that. Just state your full name and spell your last name for us.
Hi, Mike Goodwin, I represent First Industrial. Okay, so what we're looking at here are the existing power poles along Redlands Avenue. They run from the cul-de-sac of just north of Harley Knox and run south all the way to Ryder, I believe. The 3 lines all the way up on top of the pole are transmission. So that is the above 66 kV, and they don't get undergrounded. The lines in the middle are the distribution lines, which is below 66 kV, which can be undergrounded. And then there's the communication lines that are just right below that. Now, there's a line, if you could see it, just below. It's a communication line. It is a high-speed fiber optic line that runs the full length. And is not undergrounded, and it can't be undergrounded, so you'll always see that along Redlands Avenue. So our proposal was to eliminate, to not underground 500 feet of distribution line, and then a few of the communication lines that are below it. But then you'll still have a communication line that can't be undergrounded. So you'll always see that there anyways.
Do you know why that can be underground? Because there's other areas that have high fiber and they're underground.
Yeah, so the fiber optic cable, that was just installed, I think it was installed like 3 or 4 years ago, is a high-speed transmission fiber optic cable, and it can't be undergrounded, from what I've been told.
Michael, can you just identify how many of those lines that you see there are 66 kV, so that the commission know whether
The
that's...
3.
Oh,
It was
sure.
the 3 that I
I
was
didn't catch
referring
that.
to.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the going from the top of the pole, the 3 lines on top of the pole are 66 kV. To the middle of the pole, there's 3 lines that are distribution. And then below it is a couple of communication lines below that. So there's 2. So there's not very many, to be honest.
And you were informed by whoever the installer, right, of that fiber optic, the high frequency, that it
Yeah, I
cannot be
believe-
underground?
Yeah, I believe SCE owns the fiber optic line.
Okay. All right. And my next question is for staff. Did we have this information before we made this request in 2017? Did we know that over 66K needs to be stay on top and under can go underground.
That, I can answer that question. I don't know if that information was provided. However, now, we do request that developers provide that information to us before we condition the projects. Sometimes we do get that information, sometimes we do not. That's why we regularly provide that condition, and then we have to evaluate whether that's feasible or not for undergrounding.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to piggyback, all the way, Redlands, we approved the project north of Harley Knox, and it goes over the channel into Moreno Valley. So it continues all the way past the city, all the way to Moreno Valley. We can't touch them, but over that channel. That's one reason that other one could not be touched, because it's consistently all the way down and all the way down Redlands. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an expert in the area, but in particularly in industrial areas and like that, you're going to have these poles. Residential goes underground. And so if you all my side, the residential, and you have houses, it goes underground. But in this case, it's industrial area, and these poles all have been approved going back. It's always in the condition 65 and under. It's always been there. It's just, if it's 66, it's kind of unusual, but yeah, it's one of those things we never really dealt with. We just trusted that it was above that. I just stayed out of that one, electrical engineer. But yeah, this is consistent with Redlands. I can't talk about this, Redlands, definitely. So it's just something it's an eyesore, but it's not much you can do, because SCE is the one that owns the poles, right? Good luck with them. Okay. And we're not even going to talk about the cost per putting it in per pole, right? Okay, I'm done. Any other questions? Either the staff or developer. Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
This time we open it up for public comment on this agenda item. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item is welcome to come forward to the podium. Okay, we close the public comment and the public hearing and bring it to the commission for discussion, analysis.
My thoughts are, considering that the transmission lines are gonna stay up regardless, and that Olive Redlands is already has these lines running through it all the way. So I'll say just keep it consistent with what we already have. It seems like there's no other use other than aesthetic to do the undergrounding of these lines, and it won't even be a complete removal. So I'll say just leave it.
Yeah, I think we can use this as a way to let the other warehouses in the area know that if there's a power line up, you can probably drive your truck down that lane. If there's no power, if you don't see this power line, probably shouldn't be driving down that lane. Because I mean, it's just, to me, it just came to my mind right now, because it's definitely, I believe, it's going down the entire line of those buildings that are being built there. And I agree, we should just be consistent, and then when enough is enough, that we make sure that we cut it off, and that's it. Because I do appreciate the fact that we don't have these types of lines going throughout the entire city. I have noticed that we don't have that, but we'd like to keep it that way. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
So I hope that maybe anything in the future that's going up may be underground. Is that possible?
Correct. We would have to have like a trench, common trench, so that we can put in all these communication cables in and the conduits in. Of course, the power. Sometimes, in order to underground, you have to add another pole to underground it. So it would defeat the purpose, because you have to add another pole, put a riser, put the conduits in, and sometimes another pole to bring it, because we only conditioned along the frontage of the properties.
And does any future line is approved by the city as well?
I'm sorry, Sid.
Any future line is also approved by the city as well? Or is it just done by Edison?
Communication cables are actually undergrounded by their own entities. And correct, the electrical, yes, Edison would have to do the undergrounding.
Okay. I don't, yeah, under the circumstances, it would be much better to have it undergrounded, but the total length of Redlands is, is not going to be able to be done. So it's just acceptance of the worst-case scenario. So.
Just one last comment. Can I ask a question really quick to staff? Yes. Just wanted to clarify, the estimate that we got from the power,
The consultant,
yes.
electrical consultant.
Yeah, electrical consultant. Is that a recent estimate that was provided this year, or an estimate that was used that was done a few years ago?
No, I believe the applicant provided the estimate prior to actually filing for the major mod application.
So the estimate was provided by the applicant?
Correct. The utility consultants, they specialized in these, in this type of work, and they provide us the estimates for review.
How many estimates are required to be provided by the applicant?
We require one estimate.
'Cause normally when I request for an estimate for any type of work on my property, I at least get 3.
You're referring to contracts for actually contract. These are consultants, engineering, electrical consultants who provide that information. It's not for the cost. It's not a cost. They use unit costs that they utilize for estimations. It's not a cost that we require from the contractor.
Okay, so it's an independent consultant
Correct.
that was hired by
By the project, by the developer.
the developer, okay.
Yeah, they use Edison standard costs.
They do use
Yeah.
Edison standard cost, and theirs is up to date. I'm assuming it is, but I'm just,
Well, the unit cost, correct. I mean, we use the most recent, however,
okay. I'm just,
we don't update the cost on a
Yeah, I'm
daily
just-
basis.
Yeah, I was just, I'm just, I'm scratching at that because I'm thinking, well, the costs, inflation has gone up on everything. And, I understand that it's in lieu of a fee, but those fees are very important to us too, because we use them for other resources. So I'm just getting everything cleared away. So, okay, thank you.
See, and for me, I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot of cables, but that means 67% of the cables could have been underground potentially. I think that is something we should have looked at, that alternative, because it is the beginning of a block and the only development on that block. So we could have at least brought that up, and I think we need to look at that for future developments, where we request that, because this is the second one we see like this, and I think this is a standard that has been around for a really long time, because I don't think 66 kV is something new. So I think that's a standard that we have known about for a really long time. So when we're putting that into the conditions, we need to look at those alternatives, like undergrounding the ones that are potentially, because 33% to 67, it makes a difference. When you're driving down the street, it is an eyesore, and I'm not one to be like, this is worst-case scenario, let's deal with it. I still want to make the best of what we have available and look at alternatives and options, especially because this is the first development on that block. I understand further out it goes out. This is really close to Ramona Expressway. So when we're driving down Ramona heading either way, we see all those extra cables. So I think I would have liked to see an effort to at least underground the ones that are potentially possible and not just keep them up because we have to keep them up and here's $110,000. Because I really think that if the work was to be done, it would have been a lot more than that for the developer. So I would have liked to see potentially a compensation of what it would have actually cost. Because I think the consultant and they use unit rate, but I think once you get in there, start really doing an estimate, it changes how much it costs. So I really feel like we as a commission now know this is the second time it happens. So for future developments, we just also need to be more aware of these kinds of things.
Okay? Okay. At this time, we, no more comment. I'm sorry, I don't want anybody. Okay, okay. The request has been modification of conditions of approval 23-05220, a proposal to modify an engineering condition of approval number 16B, related to undergrounding of overhead utilities for a 236,961 square foot industrial building previously approved under DPR 16-00013. The project site is located at the southwest corner of Redlands Avenue and Perry Street within the light industrial zone of the Paris Valley Commerce Center specific plan. Requested action, adopt resolution number 23-33, approving the proposed modification of conditions of approval to modify engineering condition of approval number 16B. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. I can't tell, so.
Yeah, it's not coming up.
Commissioner Lopez moved, and, yeah. Oh, we'd let you know if it was. Just,
Commissioner Gomez will second that.
Commissioner Gomez, second. Are you kidding this commission? Okay.
Commissioner Gomez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shively,
Yes.
Chair Hammond.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, this motion is approved.
Thank you very much. We move on to item, unless someone wants to take a break, I guess we haven't been here that long. We move on to item 6B, appeal of abandonment determination. I'm going to slowly do this one. For PLN 17-05171, medical dispensary application, and PLN 18-05353, adult use retailer dispensary application. Appeal of the Director of Development Services decision that the applicant for Dynamic Meds Dispensary abandoned their medical and adult use retailer dispensary approval based upon non-renewal of their application pursuant to Section 5.54.100 and Section 5.58.090 of the Paris Municipal Code. Requested action, affirm that the applicant for Dynamic Meds Incorporated dispensary abandoned their medical and adult use retail tailored dispensary approvals based upon non-renewal of their applications pursuant to the Paris Municipal Code and determination that the applications have expired. First and foremost, is there any ex parte communication or any drive-by, I can't use any other term, drive-by site visits?
Yeah. None for me.
Drive-through, thank you. Drive-by like in LA or something. Okay. So,
None for me.
I frequently drive past the location.
okay.
None for myself.
And none for me. I know where it is, I just haven't driven by there. Okay. Okay. And now it's time for the city. Oh, we have Kenneth, Director. Okay, thank you. All yours, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Chairman Hammond and members of the Planning Commission. Unfortunately, you have to hear from me every once in a while, so. Just for record purposes, the applicant did submit a binder of information explaining from their position why the application shouldn't be abandoned. We received that late Thursday. Friday was a holiday. It took us a little bit of time to scan the document. It was 709 pages, so you got an email of that earlier this week. And we also printed a copy due to the size of the volume, so it's easy for you to navigate through for this meeting. With that said, let me just give you a brief history of this project. Just before I begin, the site is located at 4605 Wade Avenue. The aerial image, or the perspective image that you have in the first slide is from Google Maps Street View. That shows the site as being open as of April 2018. Although, as I go through the history of the project, they submitted the application in late 2017, and they didn't get approval until later, but yet they opened illegally before that time. So I just want to give you the quick context of what's going on. In terms of where this address is located at, it's at the northeast corner of Wade Avenue and Nance Street. And again, I showed that picture from Google Maps Street View that anyone in the public can look online and go through the history docs. It's kind of spaced between periodic years, so I couldn't get one from 2017, I couldn't get one from 2016. So the only gap year I could find was from April 2018. So for documentation purpose, we knew that they opened illegally since April 2018. The exhibit below that is just the site plan of the location. So just big picture wise, the decision that's being asked of the Planning Commission tonight is there's two decisions should be made. One is the Pelican's request, which is to affirm that the medical and adult retail dispensary application should still be valid because they were working with city staff to obtain approvals for their on-site and off-site improvements and ultimately to complete the construction before they could open. Staff's position is the applicant has abandoned the medical and adult use application based on the fact that they never renewed the application. Just for context, cannabis application, the way the ordinance was approved by the city, it typically doesn't ever go to the Planning Commission. It's usually approved by staff, and it only gets to the Planning Commission if the applicant appeals the project to the Planning Commission. So that's the only time it goes here, and this is the reason why it's here. Just for context, the typical application process for a dispensary application is they find a location that meets our ordinance requirements, which means that they have to be away from sensitive receptors, such as churches, schools, and daycare. As long as they meet those requirements, they're in the correct zone, they can apply, and if they go through the process, they could get approval. It's an administrative process. It was approved that way by our electeds. So just in terms of the context. And so that's why, and the only time it gets here is because of the fact that someone is appealing staff's determination. In terms of why the process takes a little bit of time, let's say someone submits an application. In this particular case, they submitted, and I'll go into a little more detail later, but they submitted late in 2017 because the approval based on our historical records, it was for a caretaker facility. And if you were to change the use to something more intense, such as a dispensary that has more people that goes to the site, in that particular situation, in this case, the modular structure has to be upgraded because there's more intense use, and improvement requirements such as improving the streets, street lights, parking lot, making ADA requirement, those requirements kick in. And so that's the reason why it takes longer before it takes to go through approval. Whereas if they were able to find a location where it was a retail use already, then all those improvements wouldn't be required. So I just want to give you some context. So again, let me go back to staff's position. Staff's position is that as part of this approval process, because it's an administrative process, the way the ordinance is written, which is also approved by the voters and adopted by the council, is that they have to apply a yearly renewal requirement. And so it's not like a CUP that you hear that comes before the Planning Commission. There's a 3-year approval process period, and then they have to start construction within 3 years, or they apply for a yearly renewal. In this particular case, the way the ordinance works is you get your approval. Before the following year, you need to apply for a renewal. If you don't apply for a renewal, you lost your application. So in this particular case, the applicant obtained a medical approval dispensary in November 13 of 2018. And they also obtained adult use retail dispensary. The distinction is one is to sell with a medical card, and one is just anybody who's over 18, to my knowledge, can come in and purchase cannabis. They got approval for medical in 2018, adult in February 2019, never applied for renewal. As part of those conditions for those project is required, there's conditions that explains to them they have to apply for renewal. The applicant in this situation didn't apply for it. So from our determination, it has expired. And so that's the reasoning, what's happening today. Just want to give you some highlight of the history behind this project. Just want to high picture note, there's a lot of details. The applicant submitted 709 pages. Staff provided a link, provided some chronology of what happened in the staff report package. There's a lot of details, and my goal is just to highlight some of the big pictures, because going through all those details would take a significant amount of time. So that's why the applicant submitted 709 pages. We submitted approximately the same amount of data that the applicant had. We put them in a chronological order, kind of explaining what happened and when it expired. So let me highlight the history again. The applicant submitted the medical dispensary application in August 22nd, 2017. And then as part of that project, because they were upgrading it from a care facility to a dispensary, they had to submit a minor modification application to upgrade the building. And because they had to convert a caretaker facility to a dispensary. Through that process, on November 13, 2018, the applicant obtained staff's approval. It took approximately a year later to obtain approval from staff for the medical and for the minor modification with the conditions. They had to upgrade the site back in on November 13, 2018. As part of those conditions, just want to highlight, they had to provide off-site improvements, street lights, curb, gutter. They also had to include landscaping. And the condition clearly indicates that they had to go through these processes before they could open their operation. As I mentioned right here, this is November 13, 2018. To our record, they already opened. This is based on just Google Maps, April 2018. This is approximately 6 months before they even got approval from the city, with conditions that they had to complete the improvements before they could even open. I can't speak that they opened earlier, but what the documentation that we do have, it does show that they opened on Google Maps with their flags, were ready for operation, April of 2018. Okay, the next point I want to get to is, although the applicant, they went through the plan check process, while they were doing all of this, staff was not fully aware they were operating illegally. The applicant went through the process to get the off-site improvements with the engineering department. They obtained approval from the engineering department on July 2020. They obtained the on-site electrical plan from the building department on January 2021. This is much after when they started operation. So they were operating illegal this entire time. They went through the plan check process, and yet they opened earlier. And although they got the approval plan, they never started construction. Now, I will elaborate later to you that it waited almost a year and a half later when the city decided to work with the sheriff's department to shut them down. They waited over a year, even though they had the approved plan, so they could have started construction, yet they did not do anything. So let me go back real quickly here. So just want to highlight some information for you. The applicants, while they were going through this process, before they even obtained city approval, they went to our HDL consultant, HDL, and tried to obtain a business license in December 2017 to start operation. they should know as a dispensary, they should know better that they also need to get the Department of Cannabis Control. And I'm just using the current name because the name of the Cannabis Control they have changed over the last couple of years, but I'm just using the current name. They were required to obtain approval from the Department of Cannabis Control to even start operation. And yet they filed for a business license with the city, knowing they had conditions before they can even open. And yet they tried to get a business license illegally and without city approval. As I mentioned, while they were going through this whole process, the applicant continued, to my knowledge, to reach out to HDL to get a business license, although they knew that they were going through all this whole process. So in January 1st of 2020, my understanding is they reached out to HDL, they got HDL to issue a business license. They should have not have done that in the first place. They didn't finish the improvement plans, they didn't start construction, and yet they chose to open illegally since April 2018, to the earliest of our knowledge based on what information we have. Because for the business license to be issued properly, they had to get the improvement plans completed, they had to start the improvement plans, which they never did. They got the improvement plans, they should have started the permit, pulled permit, start construction, and then they had to go through a certificate of occupancy process where all staff member goes out, verifies the lighting is in, the street improvements in, the ADA improvements in, but they didn't do any of that. And that was clearly in their conditions of approval. Yet they reached out to HDL and got a business license issued, and that's why we're saying that the business license was issued in error. I just want to highlight some other information, and just kind of go back and forth a little bit. Just to say that although the dynamic men's defense was not permitted to open until they obtained staff approval, completed all their improvements, just want to highlight again, based on Google Maps, they opened at least since April 2018. We also looked through Yelp. There's a review on Yelp, and it's part of your package. There was a few people who commented throughout the whole time they were operating illegally. The furthest we found back was from October 7th, 2018. That's part of your package too. The first time the staff was fully aware that they were operating illegally was from the Code Enforcement Department. There was a complaint that there was a dispensary in town that's open 24 hours. And so that's when we first caught wind of the fact that they were operating illegally. So just want to tell you the facts that, they were operating illegally. We didn't fully know until that time. In addition, I was reached out to by the Department of Cannabis. The name of the department was different back then. I believe it was March of 2020. They also reached out to the city saying that, hey, did you know that there's an illegal operation that does not have the approval from the state? And so over a period of time, we were connecting the dots and we're saying, hey, we have an operator that has a tendency to operate outside the norms of our procedures and requirements. And as I mentioned, HDL made a mistake. They issued them a business license in January of 2020. We worked with HDL and we said, HDL, please revoke their business license. So on June 12, 2020, the city, through HDL, issued them a letter saying that, hey, formally we're revoking your business license. Because first of all, you don't have the Department of Cannabis Control with approval, and you don't have city approval. So we revoked their business license. They still, although they got that information, they continue to operate without a permit. They should have known that, you don't have a business license, you shouldn't be operating. Also, in addition, our city attorney's office got involved because we were seeing a pattern of them not following through with our requests. I just want to mention, in March 6th of 2020, our city attorney office sent them a letter, and again on April 1st, 2020, telling Dynamic Meds, you need to cease and desist, you need to stop operation. They still refuse to close. The operation did not choose to close because we had to work with the sheriff's department. And it took us a while, it took us over a year to work with the sheriff's department to get them to close. So between August 6, 2021 and August 10th, 2021, the sheriff's department was at the site. And if you just look at the timeline, this is almost a year and a half later. They chose not to close. They will claim in their record that they closed on August 5th, the day before the sheriff's department came down to the site. Our code department is here to verify that our sheriff's department came down there August 6th. They were still there. And it took 4 days to close them down and to get them to close. So let me just summarize what are the main points here. During the entire application process for the medical and adult use dispensary approval, the applicant continued to operate illegally while processing the city's application process for these type of operation, thereby not following the procedures or rules of the city and operating illegally. In addition, the dispensary opened without the approval of the Department of Cannabis Control. And I kind of highlighted the email here. You're going to use Department of Cannabis Control, but back then it was reviewed by the Department of Consumer Affairs, Division of Investigation, Cannabis Enforcement Unit. They reach out to staff saying, hey, did you know? And so this is a copy of the email, a snippet of the email that was sent to me. As we're gathering all of the data together, we were realizing, hey, we have a bad actor. In addition, I just want to highlight one thing. Based on the timeline of when the Sheriff's Department came to close, based on what the records we were able to find, based on just finding every resource we could figure out to get at least a minimum set date, that's at least 3.5 years. During this entire time, they were operating illegally, and they had an extreme financial advantage to all the dispensaries in Paris that did the right thing, got their permits, got their approval. They took advantage of all the other dispensaries who took the time, got the approval. We have dispensaries in the cities, spent years before they got a business license and open. This applicant illegally operated without the city's knowledge for a little bit of time. And if you calculate all the years, it's about 3.5 years that they operated illegally without any appropriate city approval. And I could say that we have dispensaries in town that pay taxes in the millions of dollars per year. And if you were to estimate on the low 800,000 taxes to $1 million or a couple millions, depending on how successful the dispensaries are, they didn't pay taxes in a few million range that they should have paid while they were operating illegally at a huge competitive advantage to everybody else. So with that said, I would like the staff's recommendation is the Planning Commission affirms that the applicant for Dynamic Meds Dispensary abandoned their medical and adult use dispensary approval based on the following. And I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to just go over this because as part of the recommendation, we need you to kind of affirm some of these facts. First, the applicant never submitted the renewal of either of their dispensary application pursuant to the sections that we kind of mentioned pursuant to municipal code. Although they were required to file for the renewal on a yearly basis, and at least 60 days before the expiration date. As such, the application were automatically expired and have remaining expired for the medical, at least on November 13, 2019, that they have expired. For the adult use dispensary, that would have expired February 5th, 2020. They never filed for renewal. In addition, although the applicant obtained staff's approval for the medical dispensary application and the minor modification on November 13, 2018, they never, even though they got approval for their improvement plans for offsite and for the electrical plans, they chose not to pull the permits, even though they got approval to start construction. In addition, we would say that the applicant deceptively reached out to HDL, the city's third-party business license provider, to issue business in error on in January 1st, 2020. And although the applicant needs to complete the on-site improvements and the off-site improvements first, followed by obtaining a certificate of occupancy before business license, they went ahead and opened operation. And lastly, even after multiple notices by the city attorney's office on March 6, 2020 and April 1st, 2020 to close their illegal operation, the operators chose not to close their operation. It was only until the Sheriff's Department came to the site between August 6th and August 10th, 2021, that the city, through the Sheriff's Department, forced them to close. And with that said, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anything else the staff had any presentation at all at this time? Okay. We're going to follow the same procedure. If the applicant would like to make presentation at this time, you're welcome to come to the podium. All I ask is you state your full name and spell your last name for us.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Lawrence Bynum. I'm the attorney for Dynamic Meds. What you just heard is a continuation of the bad faith persecution of my client. You have heard over and over about alleged illegal operations. That would be relevant if that was the grounds for the denial or the cessation of the permit. But if you read the permit carefully, and it was dated multiple times, the claim is that it was abandoned. It was nonsense. It was never abandoned. The claim is that it was not renewed within 1 year. That is nonsense. They referenced the 700 pages that were submitted in evidence. And by the way, I just got notice of the hearing 3 days before I submitted this. So it's not like we were resting on our laurels. But in any event, of the 200 emails between the city, including Mr. Fung, and my client, not once was it mentioned that, oh, by the way, you should renew it. In fact, in February of 2020, they were conducting a compliance audit of my client. I emailed Mr. Fung and said, great, what do you need? We'll get it to you. By the way, that's page 82 of Exhibit 3, 361. But it's really irrelevant because the issue is abandonment. And an abandonment means nothing is going on. And like I said, there were over 200 emails between the parties. There was in July of 2020, $5,000 in fees were paid towards these plans. No mention of abandonment. The city took the money. They didn't say anything about this. And then again, and this is very significant, in May of 2021, the city approved the on-site improvements, the off-site improvements, and the precise grading plans. Now, why are they approving plans in May of 2021 if they allegedly expired? The answer is they didn't. The city was working with my client was working with the city. My client has expended over $180,000 trying to get these permits. That can be found in the declaration of Alfonso Luera, which was exhibit number 9, pages 4 and 5. I don't know if they put the tabs in there for you. I was hoping we'd have an Elmo so I could show you. But nevertheless, a lot of money was spent. And remember, in May of 2021, the city approved these plans. That's not an abandonment. And then in September of 2021, the alleged abandonment issue was raised for the first time. This is really strange because in August of 2021, the city accepted another $5,000 from my client for the annexation to a landscape maintenance district. That was all that was required to begin construction. My client needed an LMD address. This is a pro forma process. I'm sure you're very familiar with LMD annexations. Wildan, which is the city's agent, was communicating with my client saying, we'll get it on the agenda for you on September 14th. Yet September 7th, my client allegedly abandoned these permits. Now, you should be asking yourself, why are we here today? This is 2023, isn't it? Well, it is. This appeal was filed in September of 2021. I don't think the city told you what happened here. The city promised my client an appeal in September. My client has 10 days to appeal, and you can be sure that if I didn't timely do that, we wouldn't be here today. But the city promised my client an appeal. September, October, November, December. Oh, yeah, you can have an appeal. Now, in March of 2022, that's 6 months later, the city reneges on the appeal and says, you're not getting an appeal. You talk about bad faith. So my client had to go to court. A Riverside County judge ordered this hearing. The city didn't do it. A judge ordered it because the city failed to follow the rules. This is an abandonment issue. All this nonsense and irrelevant about operating, that may have been a grounds if it was raised, but it's not. It's an abandonment issue. So please focus on what the letter says. It's been abandoned in September. In May, they approved the plans. In May and August, they accepted $10,000 on fees for these plans. And then they'd have you believe my client walked away from it. That's just simply not correct. Yes, this is not ideal. I wish I could come in with a little bit different fact pattern. But the reality remains, I'm sure the city wished they have a different fact pattern too. The appeal, the denial was abandonment. There has been no abandonment. My client has been working diligently on this. There are hundreds of emails between the city and my client. Not once was this failure to renew brought to my client's attention, and my client had to go to court to get a hearing today. So I urge you, please, do not rubber stamp the city's findings. Exercise your independent judgment. Take a little bit to review the voluminous evidence and make the right decision. Hold the city to its word. It said it's abandoned. It has not been abandoned. Please. Any questions?
Thank you very much. At this time, do we have questions of city staff? Or do we have questions for developer? We can take those at this time from us. So anyone?
Just a quick question. So if we affirm that the applicant did abandon their approvals, what would be the steps for them moving forward?
They would have to file an appeal to the city council. And then the city council will either affirm or staff's findings or affirm that they continue. If the council affirms staff's finding that they abandon their application, his next recourse is to go back to court.
And they would have to shut down operations.
They've already shut down, as I mentioned, in August of 2021.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank
Hi.
you.
Thank you. I do have a question for Mr. Lawrence.
Yes.
Is your client here today?
No, they're not.
Okay. So they sent you instead, and you're representing them today, and they decided not to show up.
They are not here. They have another business engagement.
Very well. When did the construction for the conditions of approval that were provided by the city start? When
They
did the
could
const-
never start because they never finalized the plans. The city refused to go forward with the LMD annexation. They approved them, but they didn't finalize them. We didn't have an LMD address.
What about the construction or the modifications for the facility? When did that start?
It had not started, those plans were never, we could never get the full set of plans approved. In May, the plans were approved. August, the fees were paid. In September, the annexation was supposed to go before the city council, and it got pulled from the city council on September 7th, the date of the revocation letter.
Okay, so how soon after opening did your client, at what point did your client even consider starting before they started sales to meet those conditions?
Immediately. The evidence is filled with, there were power poles on Nance Avenue that the city condition of approval was required to move. However, since that involved massive transmission lines, the railroad was involved, the federal government was involved. In February of 2020, a modification of plan number 1705171 was discussed with the city and agreed to not move those power poles. They had been working on getting plans since the day they were approved. They had been working for years. And don't forget, COVID happened in 2020. Slowed a lot of things down, including all kinds of work in the state.
Okay, that's true. Now, when you refer to care facility, is that the ambulance company, transportation company that was there before?
I do not know, because I became involved in this case when Mr. Fung contacted my office and asked to conduct a compliance audit in February of 2020, so I was not aware of what was there beforehand.
Okay, so at that time, then they did know that they still needed, they were still out of compliance in 2020?
No, they attempted to be in compliance. They opened their store up for the compliance audit.
But that's when Mr. Fung contacted you, as you mentioned, to let you know that they needed to do a compliance meeting.
Right, but that doesn't say they're out of compliance.
Okay, so for you, it didn't mean that you were that your client was out of compliance?
Correct.
It just meant that he just wanted to meet, to discuss it?
Well, they sent a list from HDL of the documents that are required, and I tried to prepare those to give them to them. So yes, my client was trying to comply.
Are you aware if the city of Paris has some kind of a business, a dispensary business coalition or alliance with the other dispensary owners in the area?
Absolutely.
In the city of Paris?
Absolutely.
And he is a part of that as well?
At one point he was. Joshua Nagar was his attorney prior to me. And I know Nagar was the contact for multiple. There's in fact one of the hundreds of emails between the city and my client list the dispensaries at the time, and Nagar was more than half of the representatives for them.
Okay. Did you ask Mr. Nagar to come and speak on behalf of your client today, since he was a part of that?
No?
As to speak as to the good faith of your client, maybe?
Good faith?
The fact that he really willingly wanted to get this done on time and within the timeline that was provided by the staff, the city staff?
No.
Okay.
I don't think he has that information.
That's it for me for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay around, we may, just stay up front, we might ask a few more questions.
Okay.
You don't have to stand there if you want to sit. You want next?
I do have a question because I know, and I don't know if this is for staff or Mr. Lawrence.
Mr. Bynum, thank you.
Bynum.
No
I'm so
problem.
sorry.
Bynum, B-Y-N-U-M. I neglected to spell my name, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I know that very many words have very many definitions. So when I think about abandonment, I think in this case, abandonment is the legal term, right? When somebody does not continue or renew their license or contract or conditions of approval. Is that the legal term for abandonment when it comes to permits, licenses, conditions of approval?
I would challenge the city of Paris to point to one place in the municipal code where they defined abandonment. My client and I have been operating under the Webster's dictionary definition, which is to walk away, utterly forsake, or not have anything to do with. And clearly there was no abandonment. And it is not defined in the municipal code, by the way. So it is not a legal definition.
So what would you call when somebody does not renew their license? Is it just a lack of renewal?
That could be one issue, yes, lack of renewal. Non-compliance perhaps, yes.
Do
But-
you know if this particular entity sends reminders when permits are coming up to be out of compliance, or when they will be expiring, or if they're reminded via email, letter, phone call, any which method that, as a reminder, are they provided reminders?
I am not aware of the policy of the city of Paris, but I do believe that if you're working with somebody over a 4 or 5 year period and have hundreds of emails, and you think that hundreds of thousands of dollars about to be flushed down the toilet, you should at least try to say, hey, maybe you should do something about that. I think waiver is a legal term, and waiver is a voluntary relinquishment of a legal right. I believe the city waived its rights to argue that these things were abandoned for the lack of renewal because of the city's failure to object to the lack of renewal. Why approve plans and take money in May of 2021 to deem it abandoned in September of 2021?
I'm asking about the,
The policy of.
not the
renewing.
policy, their application they go through to the Department of Cannabis. Like there needs to be a permit that's filed, and that's not just with the city, right? Is that their own entity?
No, there is a state licensing control. There wasn't at the time when these permits were initially issued, but now there is for sure.
Okay, so who did they apply with at this time? Did they go directly through the city to apply for these permits?
Which permits
The
are you referring
medical
to?
and the adult use.
That went to the city, correct? After the city permits are issued, you can apply to the state for your license.
So the state officially oversees it?
There's two different sets of licensings. The state will not license a business until after the city licenses the business. That's my understanding.
So they apply, when they're applying for the license,
Locally, yes,
so there's a process, there's a step, the city approves it?
correct.
Or are you familiar back then? And I'm not aware of, I didn't see the details. So when they applied it, there was conditions of approval, right? So you issue somebody a conditional use permit to say, okay, go ahead and apply. You meet these requirements. We approve that you meet these requirements to apply for a certain type of license or, so the state can issue it, right? But at that point, it transfers to the state overseeing.
It's dual track at all times. The applicant applies for a license and gets conditions of approval. If those conditions of approval are met, and particularly the development conditions, then they will be given the permit. My client never got the permit because they were never allowed to finish construction. So there was never a permit issued. It was simply in the application stage with conditions of approval. And that's what was deemed abandoned.
So what did they apply for and receive in November of 2018? The medical, what is that called?
I believe it was 2017 and then February of 2018. First was the medical, and by the way, the reason there's two, because state law changed in 2018 and the city of Paris, very forward-looking, very cannabis-friendly, adopted and amended their rules so that you could apply for adult use. And once that happened, my client applied for the modification for both medical and adult use.
And what are those called? Is just a medical use, or is there a title for, is it a permit?
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry, is it a permit? Is it a license? Is it a,
application.
so they submitted the application,
Two, yes.
in 2017, the medical, and then the adult use because of the state law change, the state changed, law change.
Well, that was more because the city changed in compliance with the state law,
Okay.
but yes.
Okay. So when they applied to the state, I guess I'm asking, can I at any point just apply to say, can I be a cannabis
Business.
business anywhere? Is that something that can happen where I say, maybe in the future I want to get into this kind of business, can I apply?
Well, That's a very broad question. First of all, I'm going to limit it to California.
Okay.
You can apply anywhere. There's very few jurisdictions that allow commercial cannabis businesses.
Right.
So if you don't apply in a place that allows it, you'll never be granted it. And even if you do apply in a place that grant it, you have to comply with the conditions. You can't just, you could apply anywhere. It would in all likelihood be denied unless you met the criteria for issuance of or approval of your application and conditions of approval.
Okay, is it a normal practice in order to keep moving forward for there to be an approval within the city? Then this part happens. Do these things need to happen where the city approves, the state approves before we can move forward?
Correct.
Okay. So that is the first step. I'm trying to go through the steps that are required legally in order to be able to be a full-fledged provider.
In short, you submit an application, and the city or the jurisdiction, because it can be county, of course,
Right.
that will issue conditions of approval, which have operational issues, fire, safety, this, that, the other,
And here.
and building issues. Once those conditions of approval are complied with, then you will be given typically a certificate of occupancy. There can be other names for that in other jurisdictions. And what's more, cannabis, in my experience, and by the way, I'm certified by the State Bar to teach attorneys about cannabis compliance laws. I was instrumental in the city of Desert Hot Springs to get their rules and regulations, and I'm a former cannabis business operator myself. I had one of the first licenses in the state of California. But all of that aside, once you get your conditions of approval, most cannabis businesses have an extra layer of complexity that almost no other businesses in the state of California has, and that's a regulatory permit that goes by different names in different jurisdictions, but the regulatory permit is a way for the city to annually typically keep tabs of these businesses and require extensive financial documentation that no other, you could have a nuclear power plant that doesn't have as many regulations as cannabis. But anyway, so there's a CUP, and then typically, which is, once you have those entitlements, they run with the land as long as you're in compliance and continually operate typically. But the regulatory permit is how the city, and Paris in particular, and many, many others, have this annual renewal through a regulatory permit process. And meanwhile, like I said, it's dual tracked. It's not just enough to have a city license or a local jurisdiction license, not just the CUP. The CUP is easy. It runs with the land. Once you get it, it's done. It's the regulatory permit on an ongoing basis. I'm not aware of any city that or jurisdiction that doesn't have that. You simultaneously have to renew with the state every year the cannabis control. So you have two sets of regular renewals that are part of the operating environment for these types of businesses.
Okay, and you're saying that your client met all the conditions of approval that he was provided?
He was attempting to comply with the conditions of approval, and he, as a corporation, did not abandon his applications. That's the legal issue. Was it abandoned?
Do you know why they did not renew?
It probably never came to their attention. That would be my guess. I certainly wasn't aware of it. And it
But
was,
you said you were a business holder, so being a
Right.
business holder, were you aware that they needed a yearly renewal?
no, I was not aware of an annual renewal requirement.
So that's through the city, not the state?
Yes, I'm aware of, well, first of all, there wasn't a state requirement then, but now there is.
Okay.
Yes, and I am aware of that, yes. And I'm certainly aware now of the conditions of approval require
Yeah.
annual renewal. But I thought you had 3 years to comply with the conditions of approval. That was my understanding. And in fact, you do have 3 years to build, but you have to renew I believe, annually until those conditioned, a CUP is actually issued.
Okay. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to answer your questions. It's far more instructive than just having somebody point to a page of 700. You were given over 1,000 pages of documents in 1 week, and I'm sure you did not have time to review all of that and certainly not memorize it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
When did the state Cannabis Control Board when were they developed and when did they start coming up with their requirement for renewal every year? Is that,
I believe in the voters approved that in September of 2017, and it became legal statewide in 2018. And back then, it was called the Bureau of Cannabis Control, BCC. Since that time, I was an operator and an expert in cannabis. Almost 0% of my practice involves cannabis anymore. It's now called something else. I forgot. It's not BCC. It's still a very state-level department. And again, we're talking about retailers and distributors. The production facilities are regulated under the Food Administration. It has a different licensing agency, but it is statewide. And that came into effect, I believe, in 2018 and has continued to this day, to my knowledge.
so does the owner of this facility, do they have other facilities throughout the state or in another city?
Well, in fact, they are in another state right now, which is why they could not be here. Yes, they are in Oklahoma, which has much more friendly regulations towards cannabis businesses.
Do they have another one in California?
Not to my knowledge.
So I believe that you somewhat modeled the municipal code for the cannabis sections 554 after some of the state stuff and then some other issues with reviewing other cities' requirements as well, correct?
During the time it was adopted, this was a very new industry. So our legal counsel, in reviewing the limited number that was open during the time, developed those regulations. And I'm not privy to if they looked at the few jurisdictions that had it during that time. But we were one of the first few jurisdictions that opened up cannabis.
But it's still, per the state requirements, it's still, they had to renew every year as well.
My understanding is they do have to renew with the state because they email the city to state, can we renew their license? So we get those emails on a yearly basis. And even before a business can open, they would email us before they can open. So in this case, they never emailed us.
So the planning application was approved November 13th. But a lot of the planning documents and building the documents for the building and street improvements and stuff like that, a lot of them weren't submitted until 2020, some of them late 2019. So it looks, I'm trying to understand the timeline of planning or building department submissions and review why the process took so long to submit to the city for plan check process.
I can answer that if you would like. Again, in their 200 emails with the city, initially, there were things like the power pole that needed to be moved, and it took a special meeting with the city, and the city was very accommodating. That was one of the processes. When COVID struck in 2020, in March of 2020, the whole state shut down. I mean, nothing was going on. Trying to go to and into freeways were ghost towns. I'm sure there's multiple emails in the file, even a year later, don't come into our office. You have to make appointments to come see me. It was very difficult. Webb Engineering was the original engineer on this project. They had gone so far, and then that stopped. My client engaged Beckwith Engineering. Beckwith Engineering, there are numerous emails between Beckwith and the city. What is it that you want? What is it that you need? For example, there was a big issue with converting the modular unit. They wanted plans. Well, nothing was changing, and my client was asking, what do you need? You just need a floor plan? Finally, the city said, no, we need an ADA inspection. All right, so my client paid $4,500, get an ADA inspection and submitted it to the city. Nothing happened. Then later on, oh, well, wait a minute, we need something else. There was a lot of communication, and I'll very honestly admit my client could have been more diligent. I do believe that COVID really slowed us down. I believe this process was not as streamlined as it should have been, and partly that was for both sides. But I think the most significant fact, and these are simple dates. May of 2021, the city approves all 3 sets of plans. In order to start building, they needed a landscape, maintenance, district, address, and number. That's all they needed. In September, the city says, we'll get it on the September 14th calendar. Now, why are they working? Why is the city working with my client in September 3rd or 4th, when on September 7th, they're going to deem it denied? Why? They changed their mind, that's why. They simply changed their mind. This cooperation went out the window. It took a lawsuit and a court order to get here. You know, my client was promised a hearing. They didn't get one. I had to get a court order to get here today. I mean, you know, that's just, things happen. I understand that. People change their mind. It happens all the time. But the city and my client were working well together at least through August. And then in late September or early September, it was suddenly revoked. Things got different.
So the landscape plan and the license for that is also written in the application for the minor modifications too, but.
Correct.
So that requirement was spelled out in the beginning as well.
Right.
Was there a application submitted to HCD, State of California, Housing Development for the modification of the modular building?
There were no modifications of the modular building, so no, there was no request to modify it. The building was exactly the same. No walls, no partitions, no doors, nothing was changed.
If I can, I'll pause there and come back to a couple more things if I can.
Okay?
Kenneth, when the business license was expired, is there a process that the city has as far as reaching out to the applicant on the expiration, or is that the applicant's responsibility to be on top of the expiration dates?
As for the business license, it was illegally obtained because of the fact that they should have completed improvements before they should file for that. So they, as I mentioned, they got their business license in January 2020, and we revoked it 6 months later.
And then after the revoked, they never got another one?
If they tried, they would have had to complete all the improvements.
Got you.
And prior to that, you should note, and if you gave me a few minutes, I could find in the 700 pages of exhibits, my client and the city were talking about temporary certificates of occupancy due to substantial compliance. Unfortunately, they were not able to get the actual temporary certificate of occupancy, but that was an issue that was even discussed with the city after they allegedly expired. So again, we come back to a waiver. You know, did the city waive the requirements for this extension by working with my client for years afterward and never mentioning it? Fundamental fairness.
Was your client operational after receiving the business license
Yes, and before,
and before?
yes. We don't deny that. And we're not relying on the fact that we had a business license. We're not pretending that that is worth something. We understand it was issued. It was not illegal. It was not untoward. It was just one part of the process. My client did it. They got a license. They were told it was revoked. Okay, it's revoked. We're not relying on the fact that there was a business license to say somehow it made this operation legal. So that's a red herring.
Okay, I know you've been setting up a long time. I appreciate it.
No problem. My pleasure.
Okay. I'm going to go through some quick points, and I think eventually we'll get to the public comment. But I'm going to do this, and I don't mean to sound like I'm a judge or anything. I'm just reading through what the city has stated, okay, because I do this all the time. First, and you can respond at any time, either one, but we'll have time for the city response. Number one, the city's talking about the applicant never submitted renewal of one of their dispensary applications pursuant to the sections of the Paris Municipal Code. This is what they state. The application automatically expire 1 year. We're not talking about abandonment. There's no word abandonment here. Automatically expire 1 year from the date of issuance unless the holder of a commercial marijuana operation permit applies for the renewal of an existing permit no less than 60 days. That's what they're stating. As such, the application will automatically expire and have remained expired since November 13, 2009 for medical use and February 20 for adult use. That's what they're stating and they're documenting. Second, the applicant obtained staff approval for both the medical dispensary application and minor modification November 13, 2018. But they did not obtain approval for the off-site improvements from the engineering department until July 20th. This is what they're stating. I'm putting it on the record. And the electrical plans for the on-site improvements until January 2021. That's 2 points. Number three, the applicant deceptively, that's their word, deceptively reached out to HDL, third-party business license provider, to issue a business license in error January 1st, 2020, although the applicant needed to complete the on-site and off-site improvements first, followed by obtaining a certificate of occupancy before a business license could be issued. That's third point. Four, they say after multiple notices from the city attorney's office, what these happened, if this is a true statement, I'm just stating what they're saying. March 6, 2020 and April 1st, 2020 to close their illegal operation. The operator chose not to close their operation. This dispensary operation only closed after the sheriff's department, and you can document whether the sheriff's department was there, shut down the operation between August 6, 2021 and August 10, 2021. Those are the 4 points that they have stated here. Now, if you want to comment on any of those 4 points, based upon what they have said is they've documented, I would say now would be the time. But this is what they documented. I'm not saying any other thing. I'm not going by any other, the 700. I'm going by what they have stated in this recommendation. Did this operation continue without the necessary statements or things that they needed?
Just, you read the record well. There was a little emphasis on some of those words, but I think you were just emphasizing the fact that that's what's claimed. So I understand that. I appreciate that. And my client's rebuttal is really simple. The city wrote over 200 emails to my client. Not once did they bring up this issue. If you look, you made a point about the word abandonment's not here. That's another deception by the city or a willful refusal, a disregard of the actual facts. If you read the revocation letter written by Mr. Fung, it specifically uses the word abandonment, which is why I'm using the word abandonment. The grounds for being here today is city's words, abandonment of the applications. So I think it's very important to remember this is not a fictitious, lawyerly mincing words. So anyway, I think it's important. You have to know there's 200 emails here. You should know that the city was accepting money months before this happened, and even days before the alleged revocation. The city is attempting to put landscape maintenance annexation on the consent calendar, which my clients needed to commence construction. So if you focus on abandonment, there just can be no reasonable basis to find that my client abandoned these conditions of approval.
Okay, I'm just reading what's stated here from the city. Now, my last question, and I'll move on. I will move on. They may have a few other ones. Was your client continue to operate under these circumstances as stated by the city without the necessary legal documents?
My clients operated at times until the sheriff's department came, and then they seized. By the way, the sheriff's department doesn't shut you down. The sheriff's department conducts a law enforcement investigation. They take evidence, and they leave. There's no board ups. There's no shutdowns. They conducted a raid in popular parlance, and they left. And my client decided at that point, it's probably good to stop operating and let's get this thing built, because we're that close anyway, because that happened in what was that, August? Whatever day it happened, I personally sat in my car for 4 hours while I watched them conduct the raid. I met with the officers. I actually retrieved evidence from them, very familiar with it. It didn't take 4 days, it took 4 hours, and when it was done, it was done. But to answer your question, yes, my client had been operating before then. After that day, they voluntarily ceased operation.
That's it for me, unless you guys have.
I have a question for Kenneth. You stated that there's taxes that the applicant didn't pay. Is that retail tax or?
We have a cannabis tax, so if they were a legal operation, they would have paid 10% of their gross receipt. In this particular case, they didn't pay it based on what we know for at least 3.5 years. From the time that we knew that they were operating illegally, that was a little over a year and a half. So during that whole time, and we couldn't collect taxes from someone who's operating illegally.
Got you.
Kenneth, the applicant was removed from the agenda because of the awareness of the lack of the resubmittal of the application that's required, or why was it removed from the agenda?
Can you repeat that question?
So he, a few days before the agenda was, he was set to present at, to the city council. He was removed from the agenda item. Is that because of the awareness of the application was no longer valid because of the submittal was expired because it wasn't submitted within 1 year time period?
I think, if I'm hearing you correctly, he's referring to the LMD Landscape Maintenance District. And so what was happening is, the city has multiple departments. So we have an outside consultant that does the LMD. And so when you try to communicate with multiple departments, a lot of times we don't know what they're doing trying to communicate to other departments. So when we figured out that it was going to be set on the agenda, and we figured out that we connected the dots, this is the same address where we had a concern with an illegal operator, we said, hey, there's a concern here, we removed it from the agenda. So that's what happened.
Okay. That's kind of what I assumed, that you realized that they were illegally operating, so, all right, thank you.
So what happened in May when they approved all the plans? Were they unaware of this place at that time? I wonder.
Okay, is there any more comment from staff or? Okay, you can take a seat for the time.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll move on to public comment. We're going to follow the same process. Any public comment from any person on this agenda item? After. Any public comment? Seeing none, we close the public comment. And now we're going to have the opportunity for the developer, even though there was no public comment, if you would like to make another statement, rebuttal, whatever you'd like to say, now's the time. I didn't hear any public comment, so that kind of threw. And then we'll have the city respond.
I'm sorry. I felt you gave me a fair hearing. I know there's this procedure and we kind of deviated slightly, but you need information and we're here to provide that. So my client is fine with no further comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now if the city would like to come forward, anyone, code enforcement, anyone would come forward at this time in response to that.
I would just like to provide a few brief response before I conclude my comments. First and foremost, I just want to say that the applicant, maybe he's not aware of how construction process works. You don't need an LMD annexation to start construction. Once the plan is approved, you go pull your permits. It took them over a year and 3 months before they didn't even do that during that year and 3 months before the city shut them down. And so I would say that the applicant either doesn't know how the construction process works, and that's why he never pulled a permit. I can't speak on why they didn't do it, but the typical process is you get your approved plans, You come into the city, you pay your permit fee so they can start the inspection process, you get your contractor to start construction. Just wanted to note the conditions of approval, as I mentioned, inform the applicant that there was a renewal requirement. It was in the conditions of approval. We're not required by the code to remind people. These are professional, they should be professional developers. They should be reading their conditions to figure out that they need to renew the application. I do want to say that, as Mr. Bynum noted, he had, in his own word, he said that they never filed the application. This is very clear in the code. It's like if you don't renew, it expired. It's not the city's obligation to go tell someone to go file a renewal. I do want to say that the city was trying to work with them. We were unaware of their expiration, and we were unaware that they were operating illegally. Knowing that they were operating illegally, and it took us time to figure that out after we got notice from people calling code and informing them, and the fact that the quote-unquote Cannabis Bureau at the time, I guess they changed their name, informed staff of this use. Once we got all of that data, the city's position changed in trying to continue to work with the applicant. And I just wanted to mention again, the application did expire, the medical on November 13, 2019, and the adult on February 5th, 2020. In addition, the only reason we have this hearing, and the judge specifically, all the direction that we got was to have a hearing. There's no mention of what are our obligation other than we had to hold this hearing. And I'll leave it at that. If it goes back to the court, we'll figure out what other obligation we have, but all that was directed to us was to have this hearing. In addition, I just want to make sure that the applicant, because the council, shortly after we approved the adult use and medical use, the council suspended all new applications. So there's not an opportunity for the applicant to come back and submit a new application unless the council decides that they want to change their position. But at this point, there's no direction for us to do that. In addition, just want to note that I know the applicant mentioned about COVID, but in terms of the timing, that happened before COVID started or when it really picked up. In addition, I just want to mention, in Mr. Bynum's own word, they were illegally operating for years. He didn't mention how far back beyond April of 2018, but he did admit it in his own words that they were operating illegally. In addition, in Mr. Bynum's own word, they didn't pay any taxes during this time, which, as I mentioned, was a huge competitive advantage to every other legal operation in the city of Paris. And again, they could have started construction. Maybe Mr. Bynum, being an attorney, is not aware of how construction works and how you pull permits. But if they actually started, that would be a different story. We might have some legal obligation to require him to continue on, but he never started construction that he could have, and at least as early as July, I believe, 2020, if my notes are correct. In addition, just to finalize, they just never renew. The code is very clear about if you don't apply, whether they use the term abandoned or not. As I mentioned, as you read out, Mr. Hammond, abandonment is just a term we use because they never renew. If you don't renew, it expired, so the term that we use is because it's abandoned. Whether that term is in there, the fact the code is very clear. If you don't renew, you're expired, and you don't have an opportunity to appeal. As Mr. Bynum said, the only reason why we're here, because we told him, you can't appeal. He went to court, and we're back here because the judge asked us to have a hearing. And that concludes my rebuttal. The Plan Commission can discuss and can look at the notes in front of you and just to affirm or add additional notes for our record.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we're technically closing the public hearing now. Okay. Wow. Do we need a break or we want to go on? Yeah, I thought you would. Yeah, I thought so. At this time, we bring it to the Planning Commission for discussion. Now you can say what you want. For discussion, whatever term we want to use, debate. Okay.
Well, thank you to the Mr. Bynum and in representation of his applicant today, the city staff, Kenneth, for providing the city's rebuttal and recommendation to Planning Commission today. I understand that there's only a certain amount of permits that are allowed in the city of Paris. And as it was mentioned earlier, there is a more scrutinized process for these types of locations to be opened. And ever-changing, the state of California, the policies and regulations change as well. I think having that in mind, understanding that there needs to be a much more careful care with this dispensary business that's going on here, especially in our city. I've heard in the past, and I know that we've all heard this before, the city of Paris is has one of the most strictest building permits, business license requirements than other cities around us. And I believe there's good reason for that. And so using the word abandonment, I know that's that's a very controversial word today, because it can be used one way or another depending on what side you're sitting on. However, the meaning that it has to me today is that when you understand that there is a process and you don't fulfill the requirements of that process, then you're giving up your seat. And that just doesn't happen with this process, but it happens in other ways too. If I apply to a college and I don't pay my fees at the deadline, I abandon or give up my seat in that classroom, and those fees aren't refundable, right? If you paid something, if you paid your parking pass for the semester or the quarter, or if you paid for your apartment that you're going to be living in for that semester, if you lost that seat in that class, you lost it because you did not meet the deadline. And is there a way for a student can go and appeal? They can go into the finance department and financial aid and even cry. I've seen students cry, right, at the financial aid office because they really want to be there. They need that class to graduate, and they walk out crying because there is nothing you can do about it. You can try going to the ombudsman, but it's not going to work because they hold you accountable because you're a student and that's part of your responsibility to be able to look that through. And it's a hard lesson to learn. And those are the lessons that set the standard. Those are the lessons that allow us to be able to not make that mistake again. And unfortunately, many years passed. In regards to these other approvals that were made, the city works constantly in these different departments or units work. They just continue to do their job in good faith that the applicant is going to follow through. And I've seen this many times. They won't hold up your process for your engineering department. They won't hold it just because you haven't done this part. Your application is in as a whole with different components, and there's a good faith that it's going to follow through. And this is the first time for me that we have this type of application or appeal come to Planning Commission, or as I've been here. And I can honestly say that there's always been good feedback from the staff with the department as well. So for me, there is no say, well, we have a reputation of not following through, et cetera. That's never come across before either. So this is also a new for me. So there's a lot of things to consider, but I think it's a reflection moment for the applicant and for other businesses in our area, especially the ones in the retail dispensary sector, to consider that please do your homework. And this is a good example of when there's many deadlines that were not met. You have to reach out to someone to represent you because you don't want to miss again. So you hire a professional to do it for you. And that's a perfect example of what we see today. So I do appreciate listening to both sides today. But again, this is definitely a learning experience. That's it for me.
I think this is a very complicated and tough situation. Ultimately, we want to encourage businesses to come to the city of Paris. Like Kenneth mentioned, there's a lot of tax dollars that the city was missing out through this applicant, and it's clear that the applicant was negligent and fulfilling the conditions to continue with the licensing process. So, like I said, we want to encourage businesses to come here, but we got to do it by the books. That being said, I got to stand by the city's decision.
I also have a lot of empathy for the applicants and the trials that they've gone through. However, having worked and having held or helped others hold licenses with different state entities, I know that when you have a licensing, you have to be very proactive and maintain your deadlines. Make sure you look into how often you have to renew, because when you log into any of the entities, it tells you when it was issued and when it expires. So I think when you are a business owner, you do have that obligation to yourself to maintain things in order, up to date, in order to continue to function. I also have concerns about operating illegally since at least April 2018. And in their original conditions of approval, they had said they were going to run, I think, from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Either way, they had given a time frame of when they were going to be open. So not only were they operating illegally, they were operating 24 hours. So that alone, when they applied, they had said they were going to have certain hours of operation, and they still went to 24 hours. So I give them the benefit of the doubt about not knowing the processes, but when you come in and say, this is going to be my hours of operation, and you extend that, that tells me that they really were not wanting to be compliant or standing to what they were committing to in writing and originally. So that puts a lot of doubt in my mind, and just, I think having experienced several state entities that offer different types of licensing, I know that in all situations, I have gotten emails, letters, reminders, and I also have it on my calendar when they're going to expire. I need to know ahead of time how long, because there are fees to renew. And I need to be able to plan for that and when they're going to be due, and take appropriate measures to make sure I stay compliant.
So I was actually standing at the City of Riverside Building Department when COVID hit, trying to get in, submit and resubmit some drawings. So I understand the process of COVID when it hit. I am an architect, so I've been through the building process many, many times. I have many conditional use permits that I keep track of. I may not have written them all down, but I keep track of when the renewals are required, or if I'm going to miss a date, I'm writing a letter to ask for an extension if I don't do it. But looking at the municipal codes, I understand municipal codes, and I read the municipal codes that are important to my client, and the dates that, when stuff had to be renewed. I currently got over 14 licenses in many states, so I got to track 14 licenses from 14 states, when they have to be renewed. I can tell you which ones have to be renewed and what month they have to be renewed in. So this is one project. I don't know, that's why I asked the applicant that, does he have multiple, stores within the state of California? And this is just one of them. So this is one of the most important things for him to renew, is get a new application in, not only from the city, but from the state. So I understand the frustration that he has, but it's oversight perhaps from the owner that happened. And then it was a little bit, not one of the conditional use permits, they never reminded me to, hey, you're going to expire, you need to renew this. None of them renewed, let me know that. So, as an owner, it's your responsibility, or you hire someone to let you know it's your responsibility that your expiration's coming up. So that's what I see the issue is here, and that's what I'm going to stand by.
Okay, I won't prolong the agony too long. First, I appreciate staff, and I appreciate other city staff for being so patient, and I appreciate coming in, no matter what we end up coming up with. I'm only going to say this once, I'm going to say it again, because I promise I won't go through a whole diatribe, but as a contract administrator with the city of Los Angeles, I even wrote some contracts for the city attorney, and that's shocking, right? Because I'm not an attorney. But one thing I understand is words and deadlines, and the city is very specific. We had applications for requests for proposals. The person was 5 minutes late in determining, we threw it out the door. They had all this money, we didn't care, you were 5 minutes late, because the rules say it was 5 minutes. That's how strict we were. That's what we're talking about. These are the regulations, this is the requirement, we stuck by them, this is a small city. This city staff I have no problem with, because obviously we have give and take, you've got other things, they said this, you said this. I'm going by, and that's why I read this, what's in front of me. Words and terms like abandonment, waiver, and waivers are in writing if you're city government. Nothing's going to be verbal. So if it's waiver, it's going to be in writing. We waive this, we waive that. The thing about this is that it said, it was not refuted, the applicant never submitted renewal of either these applications. That had to be answered. The applicant saying staff approval, blah, 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 and engineering such and such for site improvements. I've been to 21 years of development stuff. He's an expert, but I've been through 21 years of contractors. You're always going back and forth with about electrical, the street, they need to change that. We get stuff the day of the meeting where they make changes. And that's not a problem, because that's normal in the construction business. That person needs to understand that. But this is a little different, because the only thing that surprised me that it came to the Planning Commission, and I was looking at what's the purview of the Planning Commission have to do with this at all, because it was the city council, and I'm put it on them. The city council wanted all this, and that's what they wanted when it started. But that was the only thing that I was surprised about. But I always say, as a city employee, you have to dot the I's and cross the T's. And you've got a staff that dotted the I's and crossed the T's. My only issue is the not submission of the applications. That's one of the things that's mandatory. Then you have a certificate of occupancy. When these things are done, you get a certificate of occupancy. When they complete houses, they get a certificate of occupancy. Until they get that, nobody can move in. That's the standard thing that we see in city government. That's the standard thing in every single city I've been in. I've been in 4 cities. So I'm just saying that it's based on this is what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at he said, she's. That's always there. That's wonderful. That's of course, there's other things. We're just looking at what came before me. And one of the things that came before me is what I'm looking at. The sheriff's department came there, they stopped. That means they were operating prior. The city's third-party business prior, all these statements here were not refuted. So that's what I'm looking at in terms of what actually I'm looking at tonight. So all I can say is one of the things that might be beneficial in the future for the city to do is make sure there's a checklist and specific checklist with guidelines. You may do it already, but these are the things you have to do in a certain, and not a timetable, but these are the things that you have to do before we sign off. In other words, it has to be this process, this process, this process, this process, ACO, we need the business process, then we sign off at the end. Without that, it's impossible for the people that are up here to know where, at what point, this was off and that. So I think that's just my thing, 35 years with city government. That's my thing where you put it in writing and then you don't have a problem. Because if they're either going to comply to it or not, but this is in writing, online for every person in the United States to see, this is what the cannabis requirements are. This is what it follows. This is what forms you need, and even examples of the forms. Am I doing the job for city government now? When you do that, you eliminate issues. We did that when I worked, eliminated issues. Never got sued, never had any issues. Why? Because we told them up front, this is what it's going to be in the discussion. No mayor, and that mayor's a jerk there, but no mayors, no city council, nobody stepped in because you had to do that up front. That's my only suggestion. And so that would be my only helpful thing. As far as this goes, I don't have any problem with the city's stuff. It hasn't been refuted as far as I'm concerned. Take it to the next level, whatever the case, that's beyond us. But that's not what you asked us. You asked us to affirm this, and it has not been refuted as far as I'm concerned. And so these things in terms of time periods, operating without the license, those are all questions that would need to be maybe someone else, but it has not been refuted to my knowledge. So that's one of those things that I'm looking at. What is the evidence here that says they didn't do it? And so unless that is something I haven't seen or is between the lines, that's what I'm going by. I'm not going by side issues. I'm just going by what the city has recommended. You get it? That's all I can do. So with that said, I'm going to end my speech, short speech, shorter than usual. But I think we basically, unless staff had something else they wanted to add, okay, and I think we've worn out candidates for tonight. But I appreciate all the comments, and I appreciate staff, all the input, and we'll just bring it at this point. I think we've pretty much gone through it, so I'll go back and read it. I'm just saying if there were anything, speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay. Item B is appeal of abandonment determination for PLN 17. What is PLN, incidentally?
It's just a case number that's assigned through our accounting system. So when someone submits an application, because it's just for tracking purposes.
I shouldn't have asked. PLN 17-05171, medical dispensary application, and PLN 18-05353, adult use retailer dispensary application. Appeal of the Director of Development Services decision that the applicant for Dynamic Meds Dispensary abandoned their medical and adult use retailer dispensary approval based upon non-renewal of their applications pursuant to Section 5.54.100 and Section 5.58.090 of the Paris Municipal Code. Requested action. Affirm that the applicant for Dynamic Meds Dispensary abandoned their medical and adult use retailer dispensary approvals based upon non-renewal of their applications pursuant to the Paris Municipal Code and determination that the applications have expired. That's what's coming before us unless you have something to add, City Chair. Okay.
I don't have anything to add, but if a motion is being made to affirm that the abandonment, if you could please clarify if you're also adopting the findings in the staff report, which staff prepared as like recommended findings or based on, the basis for.
Oh,
If IT can just bring it up on the screen, and that way they can just, our chair can just read it off the screen.
this?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't want to read. Okay.
It's up to you, or does he need to read it off,
Okay.
or?
You can just reference that, but I
Okay.
just want to ensure that when we're preparing the minutes for this
Okay.
or minute order,
Okay.
that it's clear exactly what the commission
Okay,
is
very
finding
good.
today.
Yeah, thank you for sparing me. Okay, and the recommendations as, I won't read it, but as stated forth, that the planning commission affirms that the applicant Dynamic Meds Dispensary abandoned medical and adult and dispensary approvals based on the following, and they're stated there, and they would be stated in the notes, in the minutes, and as part of the motion. Okay, I just didn't want to read all that. Okay. Oh, okay. Maybe it'll come up.
I will make a motion.
Okay, Vice Chair Shively has moved,
I second.
and seconded by Commissioner Gomez.
Gomez.
Again, for Sylvia's sake, that is a motion to affirm
Yes.
that the abandonment,
Okay,
based on the findings presented by staff.
That is correct.
thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gomez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shively,
Yes.
Chair Hammond.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, this motion is approved. Affirm.
Thank you very much. Shall we move on? Yes. Okay, now it was out of order, so let me go back. Okay. Now I'm going to item 6C.
Moving on.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Item 6C, property sale of Old Nuevo Road segment. A proposal to find property sale of a 4,992 square foot segment of Old Nuevo Road, located at the southeast corner of Old Nuevo Road and Nuevo Road by the City of Paris, is in conformity with the city's general plan. The applicant is City of Paris. Requested action, adopted resolution number 23-34, determining that the sale of 4,992 square foot segment of Old Nuevo Road located at the southeast corner of Old Nuevo Road and Nuevo Road by the City of Paris is in conformity with the city's general plan. And I won't ask if there was any site visits, or I don't think so. I mean, ex parte communication with the city, okay. Okay, we have our city attorney. I'm scared now. Maybe we shouldn't do this.
Good evening, Chair Hammond and Commissioners. Name is Yesenia Vargas, for the record. I apologize in advance. I don't have slides for you because it's a little bit impromptu, but I will verbally explain what we're asking for tonight. So on March 15th, earlier this year, the commission approved a conditional use permit for a drive-through restaurant, which was specifically Raising Cane's. As part of their conditions of approval, one of the conditions was to ensure that they would acquire all of the property that they would need for their restaurant. One of the parcels of property that they need to build their restaurant is currently owned by the City of Paris. It is a portion of Old Nuevo Road. The depiction is attached to the resolution. It's a portion of Old Nuevo Road which the city vacated earlier this year since it is a right-of-way. At this point, the city has been negotiating with the developers to sell this parcel of property to the developers of Raising Cane's. As part of the government code, the commission, particularly the planning commission, is required to make a finding that the sale of property, any sale of property of the city, is in conformance with the general plan, with the city's general plan. So it's before you today to make that finding. The resolution prepared has specific findings for that, more so that the area where the Raising Cane's will be built is zone commercial, and there is nothing that conflicts with the general plan as to the building of this Raising Cane's. So that is all that I have for you, but if you have questions, more than happy to answer them.
Okay. Well, we will, just to make you sweat a little bit. That's
I welcome them.
okay. Why do I have this? Okay. At this time, since it is the City of Paris, are there any questions or discussion on this issue? Sure.
So at the time of the approval for the restaurant, the city already owned that parcel?
Yeah, so the parcel that we're talking about tonight is an old right-of-way. It's on Old Nuevo Road. So that was under city control at the time and still currently is under city control.
But the project won't be on that site.
It will, part of it will, yes, which is why they need that parcel of land. So when they mapped out exactly what area they wanted to build the Raising Cane's on, they realized that part of that area that they were looking for is city-owned property.
And they didn't know that when they put in the application?
They did know that, but it was under the assumption that they would work with the city to try to obtain that
Oh, got
property.
you.
Yeah,
So it
which is
just
why,
was a longer process.
right, exactly.
Got you.
Yeah, I believe it's just a small stretch along the New Nuevo Road, and the access point of the turn into the radius. So
Yes, it's a very small portion. It's about 4,992 square feet.
Yeah,
small house.
go for it.
When these kinds of business transactions, will it be the market value rate normally, or is there additional conversations that need to happen, or is it usually market rate?
When it comes to selling property. So when it comes to selling property, normally the city does sell at market value. There are times that there are other considerations. If there are public benefits that the city is receiving, let's say a business is bringing in a lot of tax dollars, other benefits that the city will see from this, then at that point, a negotiation can happen to lower that price. So it's not exactly at market value, but it's because you're accounting for all of the other things that the city is receiving in exchange for selling the parcel.
Okay, thank you.
Question? I'm gonna ask a crazy question just so that I could like you to stand there. Are we vacating Old Nuevo Road?
Yes, so that portion, and then a southern portion, which is not owned by the city, was sent to the city council in July 25th, 2023, and that's when they approved the vacation.
Okay.
Yes.
Our vacation or theirs? No.
Well,
No, it's okay.
it came to the planning commission first, actually, and then it went to the city council.
No. We don't get any money for the sale either, right? Stop. Okay, yeah, good picture, good picture. Actually, it's landscaping. I think the plan was to put landscaping in that location, so it makes perfect sense. So the trucks don't stop and park there.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. I think, wait a minute, that's a truck that's there. How did they know that truck was there? Okay. It's kind of scary. They know too much. Okay, I think we're good. And unless you have any other questions, I think this is pretty cut and dry. We made it real easy on you tonight. I'm trying to find something I can.
I can tell.
Okay. I know. I'll go through the process. Is there any public comment on this particular agenda item? Seeing no public, unless the public wants to comment. No public comment, close that portion and the public hearing. I don't know if you want any discussion on this one. Okay, no discussion on this one, so we come to, I'm going to read it. The property sale of Old Nuevo Road segment. A proposal to find property sale of a 4,992 square foot segment of Old Nuevo Road, located at the southeast corner of Old Nuevo Road and Nuevo Road by the City of Paris, is in conformity with the city's general plan. Requested action adopt resolution 23-34, determining that the sale of 4,992 square foot segment of Old Nuevo Road, located at the southeast corner of Old Nuevo Road, and the Nuevo Road by the City of Paris is in conformity with the city's general plan. And there are no amendments or anything added. So, okay, and we're on the floor.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, that's a motion by Vice Chair Shively
I second.
and seconded by Commissioner Jimenez. Okay. So I say, but that's motion to approve.
Yes.
Commissioner Gomez?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez?
Yes.
Vice Chair Shively?
Yes.
Chair Hammond?
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, this motion is approved.
Really appreciate it. And item 7, business items. Are there any business items? Okay. And obviously, we have to go through the process. Item 8 is public comments. Anyone wanting, she's leaving. You can always comment. We open up, yeah. We open up this item 8, the public comments for anyone wishing to come to the podium for any non-agendized item is welcome to come at this point. And seeing none, we move on to item 9, commission members' announcements or reports.
I'll go first today, as Commissioner Gomez. Today was very interesting, let's say the least. I believe the city staff operates in good faith, and everyone can tell you that there's always a smiling face, and information's provided all the time. So I just wanted to put that out there. But also, in other news, went to the Veterans Day Parade. Oh, that was awesome. I want to share something that I saw that day that has impacted me till today, and I wanted to make sure that I shared it with everyone. We had the different parade attendees or that were in the parade themselves, and it was nice to see city staff and the elected officials. But I was really impacted by the Salvation Army of veterans who are also in recovery, and they stood there in front of the tent, and they bowed their head, and then they raised their head, and then unison they continued to march. That was so impactful to me because it felt like such a humbling moment for them to stand there and as to humbly say, you know, I'm a veteran, I'm in recovery, but here I am, and there's hope. And I believe that our Veterans Day Parade encompasses so much that includes those who served for our country and have gone through so many challenges, and yet there are still those who are still fighting every single day. So they fight homelessness, they fight addiction, they fight mental illness, but yet they're still there. And that's why I believe that the parades are so important, especially when they have to celebrate others, especially those who served our country, because of their struggles. It's a moment, it's just one day out of the year where they're recognized for what they've done, and they've gone through so much. And only God knows what they've gone through, what they went through, and what their struggle will continue to be. So that nod, it really got me. It really got to me, and I took a moment to be grateful for everything that I have and for my family, and pray to God that they continue on their recovery. I also wanted to share that our church choir was there, and they received, I believe, 3rd place, a community trophy. And it was when they started to sing their song, they sang the greatness of it all, I believe it was, and everyone got quiet. It was complete silence, and they didn't have a microphone. They didn't have speakers. Sometimes the floats, like, they have speakers. They didn't have any of that, but you could hear it. The wonder of it all was a song, and it truly is a wonder, to celebrate others and celebrate each other, and how we just can come together as a community and celebrate each other. It was really beautiful. I also wanted to congratulate Councilmember Nava for having her baby. I cannot wait to meet her baby, and I hope she is focusing on full recovery and bonding with her baby at this time also. I look forward to the Christmas Day Parade now. I know it's a family event. I'm going to do my best to be there with my family as well, and to celebrate everyone. The Christmas tree lighting ceremony, oh my God, I was hesitant to turn on the radio and listen to the coast where it's all holiday music. I'm like, not yet, not yet. Not Thanksgiving hasn't been here yet. But it just kind of sucked me in, and I'm like, oh man, okay, fine. I just gave in. But it's again, it's bittersweet because these holidays remind us that it's the end of the year. And this year has not been without its own challenges. And so these last few months, I really want to savor them in and take it in and know that the end is near for this year, but there is another year around the corner, and it's also full of opportunity and hope for us as a community and even our country. So yeah, this has definitely been a really interesting day for me too. So sorry to take up so much of your time, but thank you to everyone for being here, staff, and everyone's been just always wonderful, and I really do appreciate that, and I really enjoy being here. So thank you all so much.
You know, I have to say that Veterans Day Parade got me in trouble because I had told, a lot of staff that see me at our city parades or city events, and a lot of our students asked me before, was I going to go? And I was like, yes, I will be there. And then Friday, late in the evening, I was asked to work Saturday school. So I missed it. So come Monday, there was a lot of reprimands. But I want to say thank you to all the veterans, their families, friends. Veterans make sacrifices, their families, their friends, coworkers also have to make a lot of sacrifices. And I wanted to give my cousins a shout out, my cousin Carlos, Alex, and Nick, who are all Marines. So I want to thank them for their service and let them know, we've always been there for them whenever they're away. Camp Pendleton graduations, all the fun stuff, the Marine Ball, that was fun. But to everyone, I know the veterans leave or service personnel leave, but they leave behind families that also miss birthdays with them, anniversaries, holidays. So there's sacrifices made for us to be able to be here, and I just want to let them know that they're appreciated. And I also wanted to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving next week. I'm going to try to not eat too much. Can't promise anything. Wishing everybody out there. And I also wanted to thank staff for always being so open, warm, friendly. And I don't know if you know, our meetings are very entertaining. A friend told me the other day, she says, you know what? The TV turned on and it was on Channel 3. She said, and I wasn't listening. She's like, but I thought I heard your voice. And she said she refused to take it off. And every time her kids came in the room, they were like, you're still watching that? She's like, it's Liz. So they do, and she learned a lot. And she says that she will go back because she said that as she was cleaning, she was learning a lot about our city from all of us here. So we're famous.
I also want to echo my admiration for city staff. You guys are the backbone of the city, and your hard work day to day is clearly evident to us. So thank you for that. And finally, we got showered on the season. The cold season's here, and I'm a big fan of it. Just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving next week. For those of you who have the day off, I hope you enjoy your time with your family and enjoy the holiday. I will see you all for the next Planning Commission meeting and the Christmas parade.
I want to just say that I appreciate what Commissioner Gomez said about the Veterans Day Parade. And I thought it was very compassionate that she said, and I feel her emotions on it and understand what Salvation Army is doing. I contribute to their Christmas fund drive and gifts, stuff like that every year. So I appreciate that as well. But I unfortunately missed the Veterans Day Parade. I was off doing something personal and enjoying my chess career and did pretty fairly well. Then I'm very happy with what I did. But I want to say, hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving. And I wish that some of my family members that were no longer with me could be here. And I miss them very much because of that. But I wish everybody happy Thanksgiving.
Very good. I promise to be only 2 hours. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. It's too early. I gotta drag this thing out. A few things that'll make some agenda item recommendations too before I leave it with. First of all, good to see you back. You took vacation to get permission from us either. We'll discuss that. I did go to the Veterans Day with Commissioner Gomez there, and the breakfast. Usually I go up to the door. I'm saying, why you guys lock the door? They go around the backside all these years. And one thing about veterans, they like to talk, and you need to listen. Okay, they can talk in stories, and then they tell you about how you should run the city. I'm going, okay. You listen to that too. But it was real nice. They served us what you can get out of your seat. We're going to bring you the food. Here's a checklist. What do you want to eat? Wow. But anything for veterans, I'll show up. Yeah, I'd love to be there for that, and I'm glad to be able to go to that. The funny real quick story. I was walking down from the VFW place, and I was walking with Commissioner Gomez. She had the baby in the carriage, and I'm walking behind her like, is this husband and wife? No. And we're walking with the baby in the carriage, and I'm walking next to her like, wait a minute. We're going to start taking pictures. I'm in trouble here. Oh, my God. And she's just walking right there, and I'm like walking right next to her, and I go, and I'm doomed. There's no way out of this, you know. But no, I'm happy. I was proud to be there. It was a good time. And it was a really nice time. I went to the Copper Park. It wasn't a reopening, but I sat next to the developer and out between him and the mayor, which is probably a good thing. But I sat with the mayor and the city manager, and we sat there and we had food served to us. And we sat in the shade while all the speakers had to be in the sun. I like that part. Short speeches, right? But the park is beautiful. I didn't realize it was that big, but they're going to make some improvements. If you get a chance to go online, you'll see some improvements. Little skate park, a building, 900 and some square feet. I think it's going to be a little community space and also office space. They already have the restrooms up. They're going to take all the grass out. So it was nice being there and representing the city. I'm just thankful after 1 year ago, there's no way I could have been any of this stuff. Yeah. If you'd seen me, I was a wreck. So I'm just thankful to be able to get to this stuff this year. But it's enjoyable to go to that and just represent the city. There's a lot of representation. Well, that's the 28th park. I think the mayor said it's number 28. I think 28 in the city this size, that's a record. You don't have anybody that has a park this size city with 28 parks. Wow, and well maintained, well done, and a lot of good plans. They're even fixing the one I think the Mercado, the water system and the sprinkler that goes up there. They're fixing that. So they wouldn't leave me alone. One thing I'll say about city staff, I love the city staff here. And if I had to comment negative, there is nothing negative. They've always been easy to work with, always wonderful. Even you, John. All of them been wonderful to work with, and a pleasure having that relationship because I didn't want this to be antagonistic. We should not be that. None of us are perfect, but we work with them and they work with us, and it's a great relationship. So I just want to say that on the record. Okay. One thing I would suggest, two things I want to suggest too. One, a consideration as an agenda item, this is for us to discuss, is increasing the percentage, and this would go to the city council, of landscaping. Forget about 12%, we raise it. And we decide if we want to do that, whether it's 20, 25, that's something the city council does, but we can make that, because we're always doing that, industrial. You don't expect some kind of houses, but industrial to raise that. And suggestion came from the city employee, and I won't say who. But I think that's something we need to discuss because we're going to beat them up all the time, and they're not going to tell me they don't have money. I'm not listening to that. Don't even bother. So 2025, that should be easy stuff for them. So at least a consideration to go to city council. I think it's the Paris Municipal Code. Yeah, so something to consider. And that's something we could talk about. That would be, I have to say this so we get on the agenda, so we get beat up with Brown Act, okay? The other one, suggestion, I'm talking next year, guys. We got too much going on this year, is a tour of the city with the city engineers. So when they show us this is a ditch, this is a canal, this is a such and such, this is why this pipeline, I want them to see what we see and we see what they see.
Yeah.
I think it would be very informative. We can beat you up in the car till you can't get out. No,
Lock the door.
yeah.
Sit 'em in the middle.
But that would be very informative. And you see all the stuff going in the city. Well, why do you need that water line? Because this goes into the storm drain. Why? Well, this is how it goes. This is the building construction. This is why. Why Ramona Expressway? Why do you have to do that? Because it drains into where? It goes this way because that would be informative. Learn something, and I think it would be beneficial. And you get to see all this stuff and brag about the city when you go around and see all these buildings. So that's my suggestion. Okay. And those are two big ones, but everything's next year because we got a dinner coming up, we got another meeting coming up, we got all this. Nothing's going to happen this year. Yes. Okay. And with that, I turn it over to the director. Oh, March. Yeah, March plan. Yeah, March Planning Commission next year. Yeah, they've been sending us that. Long Beach too, not Sacramento. Oh, thank you. Sacramento. Jeez.
Chair Hammond, actually, we should go now that it's raining, so you can actually see
How
the
it works.
drainage pattern.
How it works.
You take the paddle in the boat. You might need to. Yeah. Okay, our Director of Development Services reports and/or information. Since we've worn out Kenneth, I don't know if he has anything else to say.
We'll give Kenneth a break. Well, good evening, everyone. It's so nice to be back, believe it or not. A few items that we have for December 6th Planning Commission meeting. I'm going to bring back to you a development update, which I know it was requested. So that'll be a fun presentation for you. We're going to bring back the item that was continued from November 1st, which is a major modification for IDI PLC South. Also a conditional use permit for Vita Church for the construction of their church building. This is the church over on Paris Boulevard. We're going to have a scoping meeting for a development plan review for 2 warehouses, totaling about 352,000 square feet. And this is, I don't have a location for that one. And also another scoping meeting for an industrial building, 2 sit-down restaurants, and a 4-story hotel. And this is on Ramona Expressway between Paris Boulevard and Reynolds Avenue. And last, we're going to have the item that was continued today for the intention to abate public nuisance. And those are the items I have to report for December 6th. An event that's coming up on Saturday, November 18th is the Take a Hike. It's a 4-mile hike, so if you don't have any other plans for the morning of Saturday from 8 to 10 a.m., you're more than welcome to come join us for a little bit of exercise.
I see.
And with that, I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We'll work you over it. We'll just give you a little time off.
Oh, go easy on me.
Yeah. We got quite an agenda in December, so we're going to have quite a bit of time off. We're going to eat up. No, forget about that. We're going to eat crazy, so don't even think about trying to forget that. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we have our holiday.
Yes, okay. December 14th. Location, I don't even want to say the location. I'm not going to say location because people might show up. Yeah. It's the location has been established. Let's put it that. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sylvia, too. Yeah. And our interpreter, he's still there. Yeah. We're going to have him make a presentation pretty soon. Anyway, thank you. And with that, we have adjournment. And enjoy the holiday. Enjoy the weekend, 4 Mile. Isaac will probably be part of it. Yeah. You do it for us, right? Thank you.